everyone here from Talking Films Online, TFO for short. TFO was founded almost on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. Apart from our weekly discussions, we have held film festivals as well as retrospectives. This evening, we have with us Lalit Rao and Stephanie Cornfield to discuss the film Pressure Point. Lalit Rao is a veteran film critic as well as a French teacher, technical translator, and interpreter from Jaipur. Lalit studied masters at Université de Paris, Troyes, Sorbonne, Nouvelle, where he worked on distribution of Indian cinema in France. He is currently writing a book on 25 best French films from 1990 to 2015. Since April 2013, he is a member of the prestigious film critics organization FIPRESI. Apart from world cinema, he's interested in chess, foreign languages, linguistics, and philosophy. He's the associate editor of the quarterly magazine Cinematography Art, published from New Delhi. Lalit Rao has reported extensively on the French language, philosophy, and film festivals, especially world cinema, through more than 40 blogs and 8 video channels. In 2008, he launched Cinema Poet 2008, his first YouTube channel about world cinema. We are equally delighted to have with us Stephanie Cornfield, who is the daughter of Hubert Cornfield, the director of Pressure Point. Stephanie is an international freelance photographer in the movies. Having studied political science at an American university, photography came along and by accident took her career in a completely different direction. She has photographed luminaries such as Jack Nicholson, David Lynch, Kirk Douglas, Kevin Bacon, Sofia Coppola, Andy Lau, Werner Herzog, and several others. She won the Venice Movie Star Award at Venice International Film Festival 2011 for the portrait of the Chinese actor Andy Lau. She was the official photographer for the Wine and Country Film Festival in Napa Valley, California in October 2003, the Savannah Film Festival in Savannah, Georgia in October 2002, as well as for the Mediterranean Film Festival in Brussels in 2002. Currently, she is attempting to break into the other showbiz wood, namely Bollywood. Welcome, both of you, and over to Lalit. You may begin. You are on mute, Lalit.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so thank you, Geeta, for the generous introduction. It's a little unusual because there's no electricity in my house and I'm also traveling, so I'm using the Wi-Fi data of the mobile phone, and I hope people will bear with me. But thanks to the technology, it's amazing that this is possible. So thanks a lot. Yeah. So first of all, I would like to thank Geeta and Nikhila, both of them, for giving me this chance to talk about Pressure Point. And I've been connected with Geeta and Nikhila for a long time. But you know, I've got this film, so I'm grateful to them. So Talking Film Online is doing really a good job because the kind of films about which we speak are all wonderful. And when Geeta told me that, would you like to speak, and I graciously accepted the offer. But I was really wondering about which film should I talk? Because there are so many films, so many interesting films, so many unknown films, so many lesser known classics. So it's really difficult to, you know, it's really difficult to talk about one particular film. But then, I decided that okay, let's make a choice and let's choose a film. And as I was regularly in touch with Stephanie, so I said to myself, why don't you know I talk about Pressure Point because I like this film very much, and I've observed the pattern which talking film online, the pattern on which talking film online is based. The pattern is simple that a person talks about the film, and if the filmmaker is also present, then the filmmaker also talks. But in this case, Stephanie would represent Mr. Hubert Cornfield, her father. So this is how it goes. And meeting Stephanie online also was a kind of a good coincidence for me because I met Stephanie about 2 years ago uh, through another filmmaker friend of mine, Pierre Filmo. So I met Stephanie, and then we were just talking about cinema because cinema is one of the most wonderful arts ever discovered. So casual discussion about cinema led me to what do you call talk to Stephanie, and she mentioned that my father is a filmmaker, and have you seen this film called Pressure Point? So I said no, I'm completely clueless. I don't know about this film. So I said no, but the thing is that she told me about this film, and and the very fact that she mentioned Sidney Poitier, a great actor, Sir Sidney Poitier, a great actor whom I admire a lot, whom I admire immensely. So I said, okay, wow, a film with Sidney Poitier. So it got me going, and what do you call? I did some research about the film, and finally, as it was available, so I watched the film, and I liked it very much. I liked it very much, not only for Sir Sidney Poitier, but also for the subject matter it handled. Okay, the whole question of the racial tension in America, and many other films have also talked about this topic, the racial tension in America. But the treatment which Pressure Point has done, the way it has tackled talked about the film is absolutely marvelous. So I'll talk about it in later part of the later part of the session. Yeah. So now let me begin by telling you guys how I got interested into Sir Sidney Poitier. I mean, what was the turning point? So it all started long time ago. I think it was in 1988 when I saw Guess Who is Coming to Dinner, directed by famous American director as well as producer, Mr. Stanley Kramer. This film, Guess Who is Coming to Dinner, a 1967 film starring Sir Sidney Poitier and Catherine Hepburn. And it was really an eye-opener for me because as a 14-year-old kid, this film was really one of the best films I had ever seen, one of the best American films, because till that time I was only exposed to European cinema. So, this was really kind of an eye-opener for me that, okay, that we can have so many marvelous actors, and even serious topic like a marriage between a black man and a white woman in the America of 1960s was absolutely unimaginable. So my interest in Sir Sidney Poitier began with watching Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, a wonderful film. And then I will not say that I forgot the film, but then okay, I had always this film in mind. And recently I watched this film so many times that okay, I found that Sir Sidney Poitier is not only a great actor, but also is the greatest reference point for all black actors in USA. Now, when we now why do we say black actor or white actor or all that? But again, this is really difficult But if there's a category like black actors, then definitely, then definitely you have people like Will Smith, Samuel. Guys, am I audible? Is there too much of noise around me?
There is background sound, but you are audible as well.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So guys, whenever we talk about actors in America, definitely we talk about black actors. But again, black actor or colored actor or whatever we call them, by whichever appellation, they are fantastic. Okay, and now you take any of these actors, whether Will Smith or Samuel L. Jackson or Forrest Whitaker, Morgan Freeman, Eddie Murphy, Denzel Washington, Lawrence Fishburne, Danny Glover, Wesley Snipes, and Richard Pryor of the old generation. All these great actors, they owe something or the other to Sir Sidney Poitier, because Sir Sidney Poitier not only was he a great actor, but he was also a great human being, who had who had inspired many of these actors. Okay, so any film with Sir Sidney Poitier is a joy to watch. And for example, apart from To Serve with Love, I am a big admirer of some films such as In the Heat of the Night, Guess Who is Coming to Dinner, Lilies of the Field, Raising the Sun. So To Serve with Love, To Serve with the Love, To Serve with Love. As an educator, I feel really this is the best film which talks about student-teacher relationship. And that too in the troubled times, when you have a black teacher and white students, and keeping all this thing in mind, my interest and admiration for Sir Sidney Poitier grew. And then there's another film about which I would like to talk. Sir Sidney Poitier is not in this particular film, but it talks about Sir Sidney Poitier. So this film is called 6 Degrees of Separation. It's a 1993 film starring Will Smith, and it's directed by Australian Fred Schipisi. And this film was about Sidney Poitier. And this guy Will Smith, he gets into he's a black guy, and he gets into rich people's home, pretending to be Sir Sidney Poitier's son, and how he fools them and he robs them of their money and love and affection. And it's a fantastic film. And guys, dear friends, as you know, the concept 6 degrees of separation, you are connected to any person in the world through 6 degrees. That means that between X person and you, there are 6 other persons. So this film was also kind of a big influence on me as far as my admiration for Sir Sidney Poitier is concerned. Okay, so that's about it. And then when I met Stephanie, and when I told her that I'm interested in your father's films. So I did a little bit of research about Hubert Cornfield, and so there are certain facts which I would like to share with you. Although all these are available on the internet, but still. So Mr. Hubert Cornfield, he is classified as a B movie director. Now I don't know what does it mean, because I think this putting somebody as a B movie director does really grave injustice to the person, because I mean, what does it mean, B movie director? Is it like some kind of a shoddy films which the person makes, or maybe lesser known films, or I don't know. So this appellation B movie director is a very controversial one. On a positive note, the good things about Mr. Cornfield which are available on the net are that he has worked in the US and France, and he is a Directors Guild of America application was signed by great directors such as Billy Wilder, William Wyler, and Joseph Mankiewicz. Okay, so these films, and then apart from Pressure Point, which was made in 1962, which was one of the successful films of 1962, Mr. Hubert Cornfield made another wonderful film called The Night of the Following Day, and it was with Marlon Brando in 1968. And this is a film which I would also like to discover. So I told Stephanie so many times about it, and I would like to remind her one more time that if possible, please share the link of this film with me. And Sudden Danger, made in 1955, was the first film directed by Mr. Hubert Cornfield. So from 1965 to 68, he was active in Hollywood, and apart from Hollywood, he had also worked in France. Also, he was active in French cinema. I think he had made a couple of French films also. Yeah. So this is about Mr. Hubert Cornfield. About Pressure Point, I'm sure most of you have seen this film because the link was shared by Geeta and Nikhila. So Pressure Point, I think the best thing which about Pressure Point, which we can say, is that it's a genuine psychological film, and it has a lot of therapy sessions. And apart from the powerful performance by Mr. Sir Siddhi Pache. The way the film was made, it's really wonderful. I mean, in many ways it reminds us all of 12 Angry Men. I'm sure you must have seen that classic film, 12 Angry Men, the courthouse drama. So I like this type of films, where most of the action happens indoor, and there's a lot less of outdoor action, because when you have indoor action, you can see the actors in a very close setup, and you can appreciate their performances. At least this is my way of looking at some films. So Pressure Point, in that respect, is a wonderful film. And then, of course, as I told you before, the whole concept of this talking about racial tension in America in 1960s, it was really kind of a brave subject, and Mr. Cornfield succeeded in it. And this is based on a short story written by another author. So this is not an original film, but still, Mr. Cornfield has directed it very deftly. And apart from Siddhi Pache, all the other actors have done really justice to their roles. Okay, and really it's really heartening to know that the use of flashback has been done very well, because when this inmate who's being treated by Sir Siddhi Pachi, okay, so he goes into flashback, and we are told how we are shown, actually we are also told, and we are shown how he progressed from a simple young man to a kind of a racist person, and how he joined this German Bund, and then later on Ku Klux Klan, and so this is really very, what do you call, very apt, okay, very apt, and very subtle, okay, in many ways. And watching Pressure Point, we are also reminded of, and we are reminded, and also we can do some more research about KKK in American cinema, that is Ku Klux Klan in American cinema. So apart from Pressure Point, there's another successful film which is very often shown on Indian television networks. That is the Mississippi Burning by Sir Alan Parker, 1988 film starring Gene Hackman and this guy, Gene Hackman and Francis McDormand. So this is a wonderful film, and I believe if we watch that film, we can know how. But again, you can't compare. There's no direct comparison between Mississippi Burning and Pressure Point, because Mississippi Burning was more of a popular film, whereas Pressure Point, even though it was successful, but it was never deemed as a popular film. So apart from Mississippi Burning, Pressure Point, there are films like which we need to discover, such as the Birth of a Nation, A Time to Kill, and Gone with the Wind, and recently this guy. the famous American director, he made Black Klansman. Okay, this film. Okay, this film was really wonderful. Black Klansman, in which a black guy he gets into these white gangs and how he takes revenge. So this is what I wanted to talk to you about, and yeah, and I also feel that Pressure Point is one of the biggest unknown or lesser known classics of American cinema. Now, for example, most of the films which we watch are from film festivals. Hello, yeah, Gita, you said something.
No, I didn't. Please
Hello.
continue. Please continue.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Gita. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, that Pressure Point is one of the biggest unknown or lesser known classics of American cinema. So, I would say that it is in the same league as Salt of the Earth. I am yet to watch this film. So this film, Salt of the Earth, is a 1954 film directed by Herbert Bieberman, and I feel because many experts on cinema have told me about this film that you should watch this film. So I really feel that I would place Pressure Point in the same league as this film, Salt of the Earth, 1954 film directed by Herbert Bieberman. So that's about it. I believe I've covered my initial 30 minutes of talk, and I believe I frankly believe I've been a little haphazard. But I noted what you call 10 points, and I thought I will talk about this film. So I started with Sidney Poitier. I spoke a little bit about Pressure Point, about Hubert Cornfield, about 6 Degrees of Separation, other films. So that's about it, and I believe if there are questions, then later on I will take. But now I request my friend Stephanie Cornfield to shed some light on Pressure Point, because it's a film which was made by her father. So I'm sure she must have learned a lot about this film. And I also have some 5 questions which I will put to Stephanie later on. Yeah. So I give on the mic to Stephanie now. Stephanie, over to you.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
Hi. Can you guys hear me or not?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fantastic. So thank you so much to have invited me to talk about my dad's movie. Very honored and very happy of this. And well, Lalit mentioned about my reaction, about the interest that was made about my dad's movie. And of course, I'm very proud of this interest, and especially Lalit, can you hear me? Lalit? Hello? And it's not interactive. I cannot.
No, I think he's saying he can hear you. He's muted him.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. Okay, so for example, I discovered with great pride that an eminent director who directed some movies like The Exorcist, Mr. William Friedkin. So there was an article in a famous French newspaper called Libération, and he mentioned about my dad, and let me see, I saved the article somewhere, but I was extremely because it's pretty huge. I mean, this director is a legend, and so I was quite amazed about that. Let me find the article. It came in this movie. It was published in 2015. And so the interviewer asked William Friedkin, okay, so I try to translate. So the journalist is asking my dad, which filmmaker are you daring from, saying good about this filmmaker? And so my dad, and not my dad, sorry, Friedkin answered, Hubert Cornfield. Probably people don't remember him, but he was an author in the 60s of what we call film noir, and he said his film noir were extraordinary, and they had the visual force, the visual power, the visual force of the first Orson Welles. Wow. So obviously it was a big thing to read that. And I can understand in a way, because if you look at Pressure Point, it was filmed in this beautiful black and white cinemascope. And there was also another movie that he made, which was an incredible black and white. So he did a lot of these black and white movies. And there was this movie with Marlon Brando, The Night of the Following Day. This one was in color, but there was another movie called The Third Voice, for example, and it has this particular, this particular quality of the black and white. So yes, and I was visiting my dad regularly. My dad was living the last 30 years of his life in Los Angeles. He had a bit of a crazy history. The family history on my dad's side is quite interesting, and is a little bit heavy in the sense that, they were part of minorities living in Istanbul. So my father was born there. My grandfather was president of 20th Century Fox for Europe and the Middle East. My grandmother was Greek. My grandfather was half Ukrainian, half Romanian. And so my great-grandfather, who was Romanian, was one of the pioneers in Eastern Europe. He was impresario, actor, and producer. And I found actually incredible picture of my great-grandfather, just to say the family history. So my grandmother was Greek Orthodox, and my grandfather, who was half Ukrainian, half Romanian, was Jewish. And my grandmother converted to Judaism to marry my grandfather. And then they lived in Athens, Berlin, and then they lived in Paris. Then the Nazis arrived. They had to escape the Nazis. They were lucky enough to have fake papers to escape, which was not the case of everybody. And then they went to Spain and Portugal. They lived in Lisbon for 1 year, and then they took the big boat to go to America, immigrate to America. And then over there, my grandfather made the decision to change our name. Our original name was Cornfield, and it became Cornfield. He Americanized it, and they got naturalized American. And so my father was in America when he was like 12, 13 years old. Then he studied, he went to some art school after finishing, like college and everything. And then he went to this, artistic famous school in Philadelphia. So at the beginning, he was doing movie posters, designing movie posters. Well, it was not difficult. He knew everybody because my grandfather was, president of the Fox. And then eventually the president of Fox worldwide, Spiros Kouras, who was also of Greek origin, gave my dad the chance, because my dad made a short movie called The Color is Red. And actually there is a funny anecdote about it, because he was showing it actually to one director, and he was a little bit struggling because of getting some some more work after that, some feedback, something. And then it was at that time where people were blacklisted, and so because the name of my dad's short movie was called The Color is Red. So the director told him, well, you should try another color, which is, I think, quite funny. And anyway, after that, he went to see this Spyros Skouras, and he showed him this short movie. And then from that, he said, okay, I'll give you a budget. You do this movie, what they called a B movie, but in fact it was just meaning that they were low budget movies, but they were proper movies. And then my dad had the reputation to finish these movies, manage to finish even ahead, like before the, like, for example, if they had like 3 or 4 weeks to shoot. Well, my father, I know, famously finished one of his movies in 16 days, He was, he was quite good with that. And he was, producers were very happy because he was not spending much for the budget. He was so he became, slowly successful. And he had this critic success. And, when, so I was visiting my dad regularly, especially towards the end of his life. He even took me once to the Oscars, which was incredible for me. And obviously we were quite close because I work also in the movies. I shared that passion with him. And when my dad, so he was 6 months in the hospital, I was doing, trips between Paris and Los Angeles. And then when my dad passed away, so I went to his house and I took care of all his archive. And, it took me some months to take care of that. You can imagine a whole lifetime being an artist, because my father was not only a filmmaker, but he was also a painter. He was doing all kinds of things, artistic. He was a true artist. So he was writing his script. So the house was full of, art and scripts all over. And it was a bit of madness. So then I found also his proper film, like his, and I FedEx them to Paris. And then I put them in, I don't know if you can say that in English, deposit to the French Cinematheque. And and then there was a big night at the Egyptian Theater in Los Angeles, which is the American Cinematheque in Los Angeles. So I had the honor to present my dad's movies. I was quite nervous about it. And it was very emotional for me. And it was the first time I was introducing my dad's movie. And I had the privilege to have the wife of Stanley Kramer, who was there. And there was some eminent personalities there and journalists. And it was a big night. And then in Paris, because I brought all these movies in Paris, then there was also a retrospective for a couple of days in Paris. And now all my dad's movies are in this French Cinematheque. And then I introduced the movies with my sister. My dad and my sister were not so much in touch. They didn't speak it, long family story. But nevertheless, after my dad passed away, she shared this with me. And but I was alone to take care of everything. And I have regularly, like, I go on the internet and I see some reviews, and obviously I'm very happy about it. And I don't know, Lalit, if you want to say something. I don't.
Yeah.
Hello?
Thank you, Stephanie, for taking us on a journey of your.
Stephanie, you are doing fine. I believe you should continue. Please carry on, carry on.
What do you mean carry on?
No, I'm saying no, 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 no. What I mean is that you are speaking very well, and you are sharing so many unknown things with us. So please carry on. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, because Lalit was telling me about Sidney Poitier's performance. And, yeah, I had the privilege to meet Sidney Poitier and photographed him. Actually, my dad took me to his house. And so, yeah, he was quite reserved. I felt very much the intensity of the character, definitely very smart and very precise and intense. Yes, I felt that. But then towards the end, he opened up and he really, and actually the last picture I took, he completely, I have this shot where he opens his arm with a full smile and there is some movement and it's very, very beautiful. I really love that shot. And yeah, Lalit is speaking about Sidney Poitier performance, but I think the performance that is quite incredible in this movie, and actually he had an award for that, is Bobby Darin. Bobby Darin, so he steals the show, but it's also because of the part that he has, that is very complex and very so. But nevertheless, yes, Sidney Poitier, which something that I think was very interesting at the time, was that usually Sidney Poitier had hold this role of, like in the Guess Who's Coming for Dinner, he played like the politically correct, it was the politically correct role for the Black actors at that time. And my father was a precursor, I think ahead of his time, because it was at the times of the civil rights movement. And I think in that matter, my dad, because he offered him a role that usually was not offered to Black actors. And so I'm very proud of my dad doing that he gave him that opportunity. And it was, it was going well with all these movements, these activist thing, what was going on at that time. So I wanted to emphasize on that. And then yeah, you were mentioning about Stanley Kramer. I think probably Stanley Kramer, well, since he was linked to this film, like Guess Who's Coming for Dinner, etc. So he was in relation already with Sidney Poitier. So that was probably the point of connection with my dad. So I don't know exactly, because I was not born at that time. It was in 1962. So yeah, but because I don't know what what I think we can emphasize definitely in this film is also the style of my dad filming, which is very cinematic and also very avant-garde. And the visual, he had a very a strength in the visual that you can emphasize, that you wouldn't see so much these days. And very how do you say, graphic. And yeah, I mean, my dad went to to some artistic school. So probably there was this influence in his art and this presence. Yeah, he was very precise in the way he was composing his pictures. He had a big strength for his composition. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Stephanie. I think the film is now open for discussion. Anyone would like to come in? Yeah, please. I think what struck me the most was the historical references in the film, going all the way back to Nazism, and especially its resonance for our contemporary times. So even if the film was made several years ago, it still is, it still is so relevant for our times, and that makes it an important film to watch now and to discuss as well, considering the rise of the right everywhere. And so in that sense, I think it makes a very it makes it important for us to discuss this film. Anyone else would like to come in now? Any comments, questions? Yes, Nikhila, please go ahead.
Yeah, just to keep the conversation going. Yeah, as you said, it's again something that I too thought that is it's a very contemporary in its understanding of issues, its analysis of the psychology of some a kind of fascist psychology, if one wants to call it that, or a kind of I mean also the analysis of where this is coming from. It tries to see it in terms of maybe is it the kind of childhood that the character has, and then it says, well, so many people would have had such a childhood. So where is it coming from? And there was a very telling moment in the film when the psychiatrist, says, am I on trial? And there are all these white doctors who are around him. It seemed like they were all, there wasn't too much distinguishing those doctors from this prisoner. So they all seemed as if they were, kind of cut of the same cloth. So I thought, some of these nuances came out very well in the film. The manipulation, the legitimacy that, and the sense of entitlement, privilege, that the white man, seems to make his own. All that came out, very well in the film. I also thought that the frame narrative, that is the psychiatrist recalling what happened during his younger days, as a way of, telling his fellow doctor to continue with what seems like a hopeless case. I thought that was also quite interesting, the context, because there it's like the opposite. So it's not about a black doctor vis-a-vis a white patient, but a white doctor vis-a-vis probably a black boy. So I thought the film was trying to be even-handed by introducing this kind of frame narrative. I'll stop here. Thanks, Lalit Rao and Stephanie for coming in to this discussion and introducing this very, very interesting film to us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nikhila. Any other Yes, Rajdeep, please go ahead.
Yes. I have, when I watched the film, there are several things that struck me, but let me start by saying that um, uh, the film was released in the 1960s. So it means it is almost at a transitional period between, say, classical Hollywood and new Hollywood. So we can see the classic film styles that has been developed over the period of, in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And we see those classic elements of classical Hollywood cinema, narrative cinema, with the kind of that Stephanie very, you know, pointed out about the compositions, and the way the different characters are placed during the conversation scenes and during those establishing scenes. And then we also see the coming of a more avant-garde stylistics, which we associate with the later films, after the 1960s and in the 1970s, which was very much influenced by the European avant-garde films as well. So when we look at this film from that perspective, I see quite a different melange of styles, which is coming from the directors Uwe, and probably because you are dealing with a subject which is where the character is a psychiatrist, and he's dealing with a narrative which is quite sensitive and quite loaded in historical terms. So when we have to translate that kind of narrative and that kind of topic into the world of cinematic language, then it needed several mix of styles. I would just want to point only one of those stylistic choices that I observed, which is when the character are going into flashbacks, or they are going into some kind of exposition of the situation in which we find them talking. We see it's breaking out of the classic narrative cinema mode into a kind of a theatrical representation of those elements, which is quite unique. Which is quite unique because
My dad's
this
strength, yeah.
yes, and if we remember in today's terms, the Sherlock, for example, Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes series, if people have watched that, there are several places where when Sherlock was solving crime, it just breaks away from the general realistic narrative mode into a kind of a theatrical presentation of how Sherlock is solving the crime. So that is something that Sherlock is doing at present time, which has been done in the 1960s by your father, and it is quite unique. I mean, and
I didn't see the movie, so
it's a very popular Sherlock Holmes series that is on.
Okay.
So and when he's returning back to those stylistic choices, they are not very similar. I mean, then that would have been still very unique. But every time he's moving from the general flow of the narrative into those stylistic devices, it is different. Like at some point, it's only
I
the
love
close-up
the
of the
scene
character.
where there is the slap. There is the
Yes, yes.
slap, and then it goes into this dream
Right.
sequence, and I think it's amazing. Just
Yes.
that it gives like a very unique, and then like you are suspended in the space, which I
Exactly.
think is very, very strong.
Yes, and that is something that is you are going through a very classic Hollywood exposition or a very classic short reverse shot between the two characters, and suddenly it switches into something which is extremely expressionist kind of a
Yes,
representation.
exactly that. Yeah. Expressionist.
So that is something that I find really, really unique, apart from various other things. But if I keep on talking about all those things, then I will talk a lot. So I'll stop here. But that is one thing
Thank
that
you to have pointed out.
yeah, I mean, thank you for introducing us, and the backstories that we really get to know about these films. And since you have lived with that film for so long, so it's great to hear from you as well.
Thank you.
Over to others. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Rajdeep. Thank you so much for bringing up the issue of the stylistic features of the film. Any other interventions, questions, comments? Would anyone else like to say something?
Well,
Yes, Lalit.
yeah, Geeta. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure people are I believe people are not speaking because I'm just surmising that maybe they are mesmerized by the film, and then they are at a loss of words. Okay, so taking taking this opportunity, I have prepared some questions for Stephanie, so I will ask them. Okay, is that okay?
Okay, please.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of answered no in a way. One minute.
Yeah, sure. But Stephanie, don't worry. These are simple questions, and I think you can. I know you need time to prepare and all, but these are simple
No,
questions.
it's not that. But I think in a way, I kind of answered it. Let me see. I go to your questions. Let me see. Right.
Because
No,
I have
because
questions, but I think
because I spoke about William Friedkin, the critics and the audiences. So I think I talked about it, and I talked about Sidney Poitier, and I talked about Bobby Darin, and then the relation with Mr. Kramer. I told you, I think it's because he was linked. He produced Guess Who's Coming for Dinner. So that was the connection with my dad, and then yes, and then yeah, we talked about the experimental, and for the anecdote, well, unfortunately not, because I was not born, so we discussed about it later, but it's not, yeah, so unfortunately I don't see about this anecdote. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Hello?
So are you there, Lalit? Would you like to continue or?
yeah, I'm there. Well, yeah, you're right, Stephanie. Out of the 5 questions you have covered, but for example, like this question: how do you react when you hear that your dad's film Pressure Point is hailed by many critics as well as audiences as a lesser known classic of American cinema? So how do you react? Because wherever you go, and if you talk to people, then I'm sure people tell you that, okay, that I've seen Pressure Point and it's a lesser known classic of American cinema. And it is a lesser known classic.
And it is in fact screened regularly on some channel. But unfortunately for my dad at that time, I think he didn't make the contract. It was not as well organized as now to protect the director's rights, etc. So in fact, I when my dad passed away, I went to the Directors Guild of America to see if, but it's very complicated, and yeah, I think it's not, now it's completely different. At that time was more this kind of organic now everything is, you know, organized, and artists are protected, and they have their rights and their royalties whenever the film is coming on television and all these things. And at that time, unfortunately, it was not as well organized, and it was a bit, you know, and he didn't realize all these things also, probably. Yeah. Hello.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Sanjay, would you like to say? Sanjay, would you like to say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, please
Thank you,
go.
Rita.
Yeah,
No,
please go.
I was thinking about the way the psychiatry has been presented in this film. Because this film was released in 1962. And just after that, there is one anti-psychiatry movement starting. And in fact, the writings of Thomas Saz had already been there, like it's around 1961, I think, The Myth of Mental Illness, because he was himself a psychiatrist. And then others like David Cooper and there are others, George Canguilhem, and later on followed by Michel Foucault. Michel Foucault is the most well-known, but anti-psychiatric movement actually started in 60s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I was wondering, because, yes. So I was wondering that the film, which was released in 1962, had it been like released, let us say, in 1970s or 80s, what would have been the position of the director or the reaction of the people at that time? Because the psychiatrist here, this is completely, the film is presented from the point of view of the psychiatrist, the doctor, the chief psychiatrist. And it is his discourse which rules in the film, actually, because he finally doesn't agree with other doctors that this person should be released. And when he tells that after 10 years he was found murdering someone, and then so that proves that he was right in a way, because this person should not have been released. But in any way, this presents one point of view, that is doctor's point of view. But I think it would have been more problematic had this film been released later on, let us say in 1970s. And another question was related to like the problematizing of mental illness, who is mad and who is not mad, that who decides that actually, because Hitler was declared as mad by some of the psychiatrists, but it was not Hitler who was put into the prison, but those psychiatrists were put into the prison because Hitler was in a more powerful position. And how dare you declare him mad? So the point is that there is a power, there is certain power exercised in the discourse of declaring someone as mad. And then the anti-psychiatric movement. Yeah.
Yeah,
Stefan,
I think we lost your audio, Sanjay.
Yeah. No, I'm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think the manipulation game is very interesting between the psychiatrists and the Bobby Darin character. You know, the way Bobby Darin is trying to reverse this power thing. Yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Also, I thought it was the classic Freudian approach to psychiatry, you know, the couch. There was the couch in his office, and you have, and there is a shot where you actually see this person, you know, Bobby Darin, lying on the couch, and then and gradually how he ends up, you know, completely breaking down, you know, at the end of the session. So so I thought it was that, you know, classic Freudian approach to psychiatry.
And if I may add to Geeta's point.
Yeah, Rajdeep, please go ahead.
Because during the 60s, if you see some Hitchcock movies as well, it was quite fashionable to in Hollywood to talk in those Freudian terms, and
Yes.
sometimes in a very uh, uh, watered down version of the Freudian way of looking at things, and mixing psychoanalysis and psychiatry and that sort of thing was
Absolutely.
quite common in Hollywood during that time. And also to give my point of view to an earlier question that Lalit was talking about the about it is not being considered a classic. I mean, that is unfortunate because we have failed to recognize the film for so long, and also probably because the subject that it was dealing in the 1960s, uh, Hollywood was still very white during that time. So and even now, films, the blaxploitation genre, for example, was also something that is rarely talked about in the general circuits. So this kind of films with an African American actor as the center of the narrative is something that is still very quite an uneasy subject and a film for Hollywood to digest. So that is probably the reason why it has not gone through the kind of circulation and kind of discussions that it deserved. So that is what I think why it has, uh, missed a bit, I think. But
Yeah.
we have resumed the discussion. That is good, I think.
And sorry, just to continue, and this was also a classic case of an authoritarian personality, as it was discussed by Eric Fromm, that this prisoner, that how it's good, like that there is an attempt to show about his some of the events in his childhood, the way he was treated by his father, how was his mother, and rather than aligning with her mother or feeling pity for her, then he develops hatred against the weak people. Like this is something which was there in the psychology of all the Nazis or fascists. So that was an interesting take at that time, and to see that how an authoritarian personality develops. That this person, he tries to align himself with a bigger force, and like when he joins this meeting where there is someone talking about Hitler's ideas, and so he becomes basically a Nazi. So because he thinks that he is joining a greater force by his littleness or smallness is aligned with a bigger force. This is exactly how the authoritarian personality is described by Eric Fromm. So this is a classic case, I think, a good case to study through this character. Thank you very much.
What
Thank you,
I
Sanjay.
think, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
No, please go ahead.
What I think was very interesting is the twist at the end, which was the most revolting scene, is when Bobby Darin takes advantage and Sidney Poitier is like revolting because he plays like the model character, the prisoner, who did nothing wrong, like it's not his fault and whatever. And the other psychiatrists are ready to forgive him. And then Sidney Poitier, because he knows, like, what is the reality with this guy, is totally revolted and he's disgusted. And it's an interesting image just to see like how these racism can, they get away with it, these racist people, and they play this game, etc. And that was, I think, a very, very strong point that, so we enter the character of Sidney Poitier and understand his disgust and his, and because he truly touched, he went in depth with the character, and he understood what it is, and we are completely fully with him. We I don't know the word in English. Anyway, that's all. Sorry.
Yeah, so sorry, just to continue, because when you're talking about this the prisoner, that the doctor knows the root of the problem. So he is more worried about this personality type, that how much damage, harm he can do to the society. It's not just about the sleep problem, because other doctors, they have seen him only like, he cannot sleep, he is so much disturbed. Okay, so all that is over now. Now he can sleep, that's fine. But does it show the end of the problem? Because finally he'll be in the society, and it's not about just his personal problem, it's a social problem, it's a problem of the whole society, that how you deal with the other race, with the other color.
Yeah, but that's why Sidney Poitier is revolting, because he understands the whole manipulation, which is interesting to point out, this manipulation, which is, hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can. Yes, we can.
The manipulation that can be discussed from racist people in general, like, it's like, racism in disguise, they try to, and so this guy is taking this kind of path, to try to get away with it. But then Sidney Poitier understood the game, and his character understood the game, and he's completely revolting about that. And we feel for the character, because we understood his journey and his analysis of this psychotic prisoner, and who can harm people, because he's just a frustrated guy. And a lot of frustrated people, they will reject their hatred and frustration on others, innocent people. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Tarkeshwar, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I think
Please go ahead.
some of the issues that Sanjay was trying to raise are quite interesting. We are trying to understand the film as a simple narrative where empirical reality is presented, but it's about the power of narratives. See, most of the films, 85% of the film is a recounting of the past by the protagonist. And there's a purpose to recounting it. He has a task to accomplish. So there is a junior doctor who is saying, I can't do anything. I don't want to do this. And he has to convince him.
I think you have, you had muted yourself, Tarkeshwar.
I don't know, when did I mute myself?
Okay, please continue.
Okay, so there is a story that is being recounted by the protagonist to convince another character. So in that sense, the film itself is a story on the issue of racism and reconciliation. Because here, unlike, for example, Passage to India, where the other and you cannot reconcile in spite of your friendship, here it is set in a kind of professional background, and the encounter is staged in a very interesting way, and there is a reconciliation possible. So the power of narrative of the past, which he claims as his own personal experience, is able to convince the doctor to undertake the counseling thing. That is one thing. And then the issue of the protagonist saying at one point that it is not about one person problem. It is a general problem.
Yeah.
So the psychiatrist himself is aware of the fact that it is not an individual trait, but a more collective one.
Yeah, criminals get away with it. Yeah.
But the question is, with his training in psychiatry, he doesn't know how to address this collective one. That's the issue, I think, the narrative unwittingly presents to us. So how do we address this collective? Only by reposing faith in the other, it is possible. So that's the way the narrative conclusion unfolds in the film, I think. So there are quite interesting issues that are raised in this apparently simple but very complex film. Thank you for choosing this film and all the discussions that we had.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar. Any more comments? Yes, Sahil, please go ahead. Sahil had unmuted himself. Any other comments, questions? Okay, in that case, we will.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Geeta.
Yes, please. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one point that whose name I forgot, Spike Lee.
Your voice is breaking.
Yeah, you're not very clear.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Black Klansman filmmaker about whom I was talking, whose name I forgot, is Spike Lee, the famous American filmmaker Spike Lee. Spike Lee, who made films like Girl 6, and Spike Lee is another celebrated American filmmaker who is very much honored and respected in France. So I was talking about Spike Lee. I just forgot his name, so I just want to talk about that. About Spike Lee. That's it.
Okay. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you very much, Lalit Rao and Stephanie Cornfield, for joining us tonight. And thank you all for logging in, for discussing this very important and interesting film. So see you again next Saturday, same time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta. Thank you, Nikhila. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you all. Thank
Stephanie
you.
and
Thank you.
Lalit.
Bye bye.
Yeah,
Yeah. Bye
Good
bye.
night on
Nice
Instagram.
Bye.
Good
Yeah, thank you.
night. Have a nice
Good night.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Have a nice weekend, everybody, and thanks for
Yeah.
participating in the discussion. Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you very much.